Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the hottest topics in the world of sports. I am your host, Jayden, and I'm glad to be with you all today. It has been 6 days. Let me repeat that. It has been exactly 6 days since the last time I sat in this chair and filmed a video podcast, whatever you would like to call it. A lot has happened since then. Obviously, I have not been able to talk about the Dallas Cowboys losing to the Detroit Lions. I haven't reposted a lot of videos. So you can surmise, and y'all probably already know this, today is going to be an action-packed show. We're going to discuss the Philadelphia Eagles losing last night to the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm going to give my bit about the Cowboys. We're going to talk about the College Football Playoff Committee and what the selections they made for the College Football Playoff. We're going to discuss some Bills Bengals, the Chiefs, which is the headliner of the show, losing to the Texans. And what else? Lastly, we're going to talk about the Colts. Obviously, I got a lot to talk about with the Colts because obviously I talk about them a lot. But as you can hear, I'm currently under the weather. Been sick these last couple of days, and that is the reason why I have not been with you all and had a podcast in the last couple of days. So if I cough, excuse me, I might sneeze every once in a while. I sound like death, but God, it's been way too long. Today I had to actually muster up some strength to get this podcast out because I have been waiting to talk some football, and we're going to do that today. But before we get into the show, always remember to like, subscribe, share the podcast to your friends and family, and welcome to today's show if you are listening via YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And do not forget to check out the Jayden Bryce Show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Let's go ahead and dive right in it. First game we're going to discuss some Chargers-Eagles. I was not able to give my 2 cents about this game, so to speak. Going into this game, obviously the Dallas Cowboys lose, so we needed the Eagles to lose this game, but we're not even going to get to the Eagles. Well, we're not going to get to the Cowboys and all that. We'll save that later. But the Eagles have struggled the last couple of weeks. You know, you're on a 2-game losing streak. You lose to the Cowboys in embarrassing fashion. Got demolished by the Bears on Black Friday. So this was a huge game. All the implications, you're healthy. Pretty shocking news that Jalen Carter wasn't going to be available. He had surprising shoulder surgery earlier on in the week. So you're going to be without him. But you're going up against a Chargers team whose quarterback is pretty much hurt. Probably shouldn't even played. But he's trying to muster up strength because their schedule towards the back half of their season is absolutely brutal. And they're trying to make a playoff push. But this game last night, there's so much to unpack from this game. The thing with the Philadelphia Eagles all season has been the lackluster play of the offense. Whether it be the quarterback, you know, that whole dysfunction with them, A.J. Brown, the whole offense, Saquon, and then you have Kevin Tupulo and Nick Sirianni. Well, newsflash for last night's game. I can say confidently, with all my heart, that last night was not about play calling. Had nothing to do with play calling. Had nothing to do with Nick Sirianni, and it had nothing to do with Kevin Patullo. Last night was about the quarterback. This guy is a polarizing figure in the NFL to talk about. I personally got a lot of negative energy towards me, so to speak, about the Instagram reel that I had made and I posted about Jalen Hurts not being a talented quarterback. It's nothing against Jalen Hurts, but when you look across his college career, even when he went to the Super Bowl, he's had stacked rosters. He's had stacked players. He's been put in a good position to win. And when he has done that, he has took advantage of that opportunity. But Jalen Hurts is not one of the premier quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't care what you say to me. I've always said that. And I have respected, and I've made a couple videos. I respect Jalen Hurts. He wins. And the ultimate trait that a quarterback can have is the ability to win. But in the way that game shaped out last night, that was the premier Jalen Hurts Eagles type victory. it's neck and neck. And even when Saquon scored that touchdown, I was telling myself the Eagles are going to win. Because that was the prototypical game that the Eagles always win. But my main takeaway coming out of yesterday's game, last night's game, was ultimately this. When are people going to learn that Jalen Hurts isn't a super talented quarterback? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. And I heard John Middlecoff talk about this last night. I'm going to bring it up again. Why in a football game are we having Jalen Hurts throw the ball 40 times? I know why. Because they can't run the football. Saquon Barkley, he had 6.1 yards a carry, but if you take away that one long run, let's do some quick math. You take away that one long run, 52. So 122 minus 52, 70. So 19 divided by 70. Sorry, 70 divided by 19. Did that backwards. Saquon averaged 3.6 yards a carry last night. You can't run the football. So what does that force your offense to do? Throw the football. Jalen Hurts cannot do that. He is not your premier pocket passer. The Eagles are trying to turn him into something that he's not. That game is not a game that the Eagles normally lose. And that game is not a game where you're supposed to throw the ball 40 times with Jalen Hurts. Because this was a game where it was close. There was no reason to force having to throw the football with Jalen Hurts. Even in the final drive, when Jalen Hurts threw the interception, run the football. Use Jalen Hurts' legs. Jalen Hurts ran the ball 4 times for 8 yards. In contrast to Justin Herbert, who had a broke hand, probably had broken everything because he was getting absolutely murdered yesterday in that game. He had 10 carries for 66 yards and was the Los Angeles Chargers' leading rusher. And if I'm the Eagles, on top of all this, on top of Jalen Hurts being bad, and, also I forgot to mention this, Jalen Hurts wasn't the only problem. O-line can't block. A.J. Brown dropping passes. Smitty dropping a huge pass there towards the end of the fourth quarter where you possibly could have got a first down, but you had to settle for a field goal. And they're not executing. Last night was not a Kevin Patullo problem. Last night was not a Nick Sirianni problem. It was a player execution problem. A.J. Brown dropping passes, multiple touchdown passes, dropping a pass in the middle of the field that led to an interception. Smitty dropping a crucial third down screen. Can't do it. Jalen Hurts fumbling the ball twice. Something that has not happened since 1970. Jalen Hurts did that. Overall, Jalen Hurts had 5 turnovers. 5 last night. It cannot happen. And again, if I'm the Eagles, I'm embarrassed. Despite the Chargers trying to give the game away, the Eagles couldn't muster up anything on offense. I feel sorry for the defense. Anytime the defense got to stop, the Eagles couldn't do nothing with it. The Eagles only allowed the Chargers to literally have 1 touchdown and kick 5 field goals. In what world, with an Eagles roster that has a Super Bowl MVP quarterback, an all-pro wide receiver, a Pro Bowl wide receiver, an all-pro future Hall of Fame running back, not to also add that A.J. Brown will be a future Hall of Fame wide receiver, a pretty decent O-line that's been playing pretty bad this year. In what world do you lose a game where your defense gives up only 1 touchdown and 5 field goals? And the last field goal coming via overtime. So in regulation, they scored 4 field goals, 1 touchdown. And you cannot come away with a victory. Justin Herbert was playing with 1 hand. Broken everything. He got sacked 7 times, the most in his career. Turned the ball over. And somehow, some way, you're the Philadelphia Eagles. Wasn't a road game. A lot of Eagles fans there. Did not come up with a victory. It's embarrassing. I'm not going to get on my soapbox about the whole bunny rabbit thing they had in the locker room. That's another topic for another day. But if you're the Eagles, this is embarrassing. I'm excited about it. I'm glad they're playing this bad. I'm glad that people are seeing what I've talked about all season. This team is not good. If they make the playoffs, which I think they do, I'm not about to be one of these. Yes, was I kind of happy they lost this game because it helps my Cowboys get a playoff push? I still think they win the division. My Lord, their last 4 games of the season. You play the Commanders twice. You play the Raiders this coming up week. And you got the Bills. The Bills is going to be a loss. But if you cannot, the Cowboys, in order for Dallas to win this division, they have to win out. Dallas has to win their next 4 games, and Philly has to lose 2, or win 1 or tie 1. If you're Philadelphia, and if you cannot win 3 out of the 4 games, you just don't deserve to be in the playoffs. You don't. And even if they do get into the playoffs, they're one and done. Like, they're not winning a playoff game. When you look at Philly, how they played last night, look at all the other teams across the NFC, a stacked, loaded NFC. Like, there's talented teams everywhere. Like, this team, I think they can win one playoff game just because they're going to get home field advantage. But I wholeheartedly do not see this team going past the first round. And that leads me into another team that I don't think is going to get past the first round possibly as well. And it's the team that they faced in the Los Angeles Chargers. I have been a Jim Harbaugh, Justin Herbert, I'm a stan, so to speak, as society likes to say. I'm a stan. Like, I love those two. I think it's probably my favorite quarterback head coach marriage in the league. I'm one of those Justin Herbert lovers. I think he has the capabilities to win a Super Bowl. But when you watch this team is not going anywhere. A lot of that has to do with their roster, injuries, but it's the NFL. It happens. I understand you lost your all-pro Rashawn Slater Pro Bowler tackle. You lost your perennial, could-be future Pro Bowler, maybe even all-pro, and Joe Alt as well for the season. And Justin Herbert yesterday was getting absolutely murdered. Getting murdered. There's no other way to put it. Like, he was taking an absolute beating. Every time he got hit, he was just sitting there grimacing his arm, and I was like, is this guy going to make it through the game? For a team in Jim Harbaugh who prides himself on physicality and running the football, I do not understand for the life of me how the Chargers cannot run the football. They can't. Marion Hampton, he averaged 4.3 yards a carry. I mean, they ran the ball pretty decent. But when you think of a Jim Harbaugh team, I'm wanting to see like 4.5 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry. Like, I want to see efficiency running the football. They can't do that. Even without Jalen Carter yesterday on the Eagles' defensive line, they still just cannot run the football effectively. And, Justin Herbert throwing the ball 26 times, you kind of feel like this is the opposite. If you're the Eagles, you want this stat line for Justin Herbert, for Jalen Hurts. You want him to throw the ball only 26 times. And if you're the Chargers, you kind of want it the opposite. You want Justin Herbert to throw the ball 40 times because Justin Herbert is your perennial pocket passer. He's way super talented, more talented than Jalen Hurts. It's not even close. Better thrower of the football. I think he's taller. He's got more of the traits that you want in a quarterback. But for some reason, along with the run game, they can't pass the ball either. A lot of that has to do with their offensive coordinator, Greg Roman. He's old school. The Ravens moved off of them with Lamar. Greg Roman has a history. I think he was at Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. He was in San Francisco when they went to the Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. At some point, Jim has to just look at Greg Roman in the mirror and be like, look, dude, we need to modernize this offense. Like, there were multiple plays. There was one play near overtime in the fourth quarter. Quinton Johnston and Keenan Allen ran into each other on a route. Like, and granted, a lot of the success that they had, a lot of the success that the Eagles had defensively in the secondary is because they have a good secondary. Like Cooper DeJean, he showed up multiple times. He was locking down Ladd McConkey yesterday. And, God, I'm so congested, guys. Forgive me. It's so tough to talk right now. But, and my throat's dry. But, obviously that's a tall task for this wide receiving core. Like, this wide receiving core at the end of the day does not wow you. Ladd McConkey's a good player. Keenan Allen's old. It's the latter part of the season. You're not going to expect much out of him. Quinton Johnston, he's kind of been disappointing for a first-round pick at the wide receiver position. He had a great start to the season this year. Haven't really heard of him since then. But they couldn't even pass the ball yesterday. Like, nothing was open. There was multiple plays in the fourth quarter and overtime where I was looking and they were just running slant stop routes. Like, nowhere for Herbert to throw the ball. So the Chargers are just terrible. I don't want to say that they're not terrible. They're a 9-4 team. They're winning these close, gutsy games. But when you look at the grand scheme of the NFL, like, this is not a team that screams winning the Super Bowl. This screams a team that is going to be lucky to win one playoff game. And I don't say that happily. I'm a Jim Harbaugh guy. I root for him. I love him as a coach. Like, this defense is legit. The defense is great. The defense is the primary reason for why they won last night, because they were able to get turnovers and set the offense, an offense who could not move the ball yesterday outside. They had a good fourth quarter drive to tie the game up and go to overtime. But for an offense that could not move the ball, you got turnovers and set them up for good field position to at least get a field goal and get points. So the defense is absolutely phenomenal. I think they're Super Bowl caliber. They did a good job guarding all around. Definitely stopped the run. Didn't allow Saquon to do nothing outside of the one long run, but they gave that up because of fear of the tush push. But yeah, the Chargers, I love Jim Harbaugh, but they're not going anywhere. Another team that possibly could be going nowhere is my Dallas Cowboys. I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this game, obviously, because I've been sick as of last Friday. But Thursday night was absolutely disappointing loss. This was a game that really felt like Dallas could not lose because of all the analytics seemed like they were against Dallas. And ultimately, the fuel that Dallas had could not carry over to the road. They have not been a good road team this year. Primarily, most of their success has been at home. And it showed Thursday night against the Lions. Back-breaking penalties, terrible special teams. Your defense couldn't stop a nosebleed in the second half, and the offense wasn't efficient. I think there was a stat that I even saw today that all season Dallas has 4 first-quarter touchdowns. It's among one of the bottom tier stats in the NFL. That's absolutely shocking. It should be inexcusable, given they are the second best offense statistically in the NFL. And Brian Schottenheimer, and credit to him, the offense has been pretty good. But in all phases of the game Thursday, Dallas felt outmatched. The Lions really were the more physical team. Defensively, they played more physical. Offensively, offensive line played more physical in the trenches. The Lions played more physical in the trenches, defensively and offensively. And special teams. Special teams, mind you, was the worst. The Lions averaged getting the ball on the 42, 43-yard line Thursday night. Absolutely terrible. They got dominated on Thursday. Kudos to the offense. And this is kudos to Dak Prescott, honestly. That game felt like it was out of hand. When Dak threw that interception, tipped off of George Pickens' hands coming out of halftime, it felt over then. And when CD went down as well, but kudos to Dak Prescott and Brian Schottenheimer. They didn't quit. You know, at one point, it was a one-score game. Like, Dallas was down a touchdown. In a game that felt like everything was going wrong, from penalties, giving up all this yardage, couldn't get stops. Like, nothing for Dallas felt like it could go right on either side of the ball, primarily on offense. Each time that Dallas was making a big play, there was yellow laundry somewhere on the field. Like, something bad was always happening. And kudos to Dak Prescott. I mean, he found a way to make this a game, and ultimately the defense could not get a stop. And obviously, if you're Dallas, you wanted to run the table. I personally didn't think they were going to run the table. I really didn't. But if you wanted a real shot at the playoffs, you couldn't lose that game, because all the analytics showed around 40% if they if they won that game, analytics was giving them a 40% chance to make the playoffs. With that loss, it went all the way down to 90%. And that 9%, honestly and truthfully, is if the Philadelphia Eagles just absolutely fall apart. And as I previously stated, when discussing the Philadelphia Eagles, I want Dallas to make the playoffs, but for the life of me, these last 4 games, I think Dallas can run the table. I mean, you got the Chargers, you're going to get the Commanders and the Giants, then you have the Vikings this coming up week. Very favorable schedule. I think the Chargers will be a harder game than what people make it out to be. But if you're the Eagles, there's no way the Eagles lose twice to the Commanders. There's no way the Eagles lose to the Commanders or the Raiders. It just cannot happen. I think the one game they will lose is probably against Buffalo because they're playing at Buffalo. But I just do not see a scenario where the Eagles are going to drop 2 games. I just don't. So I still think that the Dallas Cowboys have an outside shot of getting to the playoffs, and they've done it to themselves. That Cardinals loss, the Panthers loss, seems costly as the season goes by. But even if they don't make the playoffs, it wasn't really our expectations. This year was kind of the year where you're just trying to build towards the future. You set that established. You set that precedent when you got rid of Micah Parsons, right, a week before the season. You're kind of sitting here establishing like, okay, we're getting rid of our future Hall of Famer, transcendent talent type player on our defensive side of the ball. The side of the ball that is the worst unit on our football team. And, this year we're just going to ride it out, see how it goes. Obviously, we do not feel with this roster, we can contend for a Super Bowl. We take these draft picks, build a team, and be ready for a fight next year. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, even if they don't make the playoffs, you got to be super happy. The defensive line is pretty much set. I think you could use an edge rusher. But the Dallas Cowboys' future is bright. But they need to use the cap space and prioritize it appropriately, and they got to hit on these draft picks. They need linebackers, they need cornerbacks, and they need a safety. Edge rusher, sure. But I think your first 2 primary needs is linebacker and cornerback. Like, watching Kenneth Murray on Thursday night made me want to pick my brain apart. And you got Demarion Overshawn. Look, he's had 2 major knee surgeries. That's a lot to ask on a player. He has the potential to be good, but we cannot expect Demarion Overshawn to be our Fred Warner. Like, it's not going to happen because he physically is incapable of doing that. I've watched him the last couple of games. He's still quick. He's still fast. He's a great football player. But when you watch his tape so far from this year in comparison to last year, like last year, he was just popping off my TV screen. Not so much this year. And that has to do with when you cut your knee open, you're not going to come back the same player. I don't care how much Demarion Overshawn wanted to state that, he had all these, and the analytics and the tests were showing that his knee was more stronger than what it was pre-injury. I get it. But just watch the tape. Not even remotely close. And we're going to move on to Detroit. Look, I've been down on Detroit. I'm still down on them to a certain degree. Too many injuries. You're not going to have Sam Laporta for the rest of the year. Terrion Arnold's gone on IR. Kirby Joseph hasn't played since like week 5, week 6, something like that. Like, this team is just banged up, and they were just playing an inferior opponent. And when you look at their own division and across the NFC, like, this team is not making any noise in the playoffs. They're still on the outside looking in, 38 seed. But Detroit wasn't the better team on paper than Dallas. I really don't. With the injuries and the way, if you looked at their rosters, you kind of tell yourself, like, man, in all honesty, Dallas should probably win this game. And they just played more physical than Dallas. I was absolutely shocked that Amon-Ra St. Brown was able to play. Like, and I laid that out on last Wednesday's show. I was sitting there like, dude, this is probably a thing where the Lions are just trying to keep Dallas guessing, game plan for him. There's no shot he's playing. Like the reports were he was going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks. That didn't end up being the case. He was only out for 1 week because they play on Thanksgiving. And he was able to play on Thursday night. And he contributed. He looked really good. So kudos to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The interior offensive line held up pretty well. That was one of my key highlights going into that game. I was like, Quentin Williams, they should have a feast on that interior of the offensive line because that's where primarily most of the pressure has been going. And Jared Goff is not a guy who is going to be able to run away. Now, credit to the Dallas Cowboys just a little bit. They were able to create some pressure from Jared Goff, but Jared Goff was absolutely making some plays on Thursday night. And their defensive line, led by Aiden Hutchinson, got a surprising amount of pressure on Dak Prescott. They sacked Dak Prescott 5 times. I want to say that might be the most Dak Prescott's been sacked all season. I can't statistically back that comment up, but I've watched the Dallas Cowboys every snap this year. From my brain, I want to say that is the most he's been sacked all year. And that was shocking because, Nate Thomas has been playing well. Terrence Steele has been playing well the last couple of weeks, and they just got dominated. Like the tackles they had their worst performance of the year, led by Aiden Hutchinson. So kudos to the Lions on that front. Now let's move on to the George Pickens thing. Obviously, I'm going to have something to say about this. George Pickens was ultimately the main headline coming out of that game. CeeDee Lamb goes down with a concussion, and George Pickens had to become the number 1 guy. And there was primetime game Thursday night. Everybody's there to see. And they saw George Pickens loafing on the field. Did it look worse? Let me say this. The people who are criticizing George Pickens and his route running and his effort, if you watch the Cowboys and actually watch the Dallas Cowboys, that's mostly how George Pickens has been running his routes all year. He has. Granted, there were some moments where I didn't love his effort because, and he said it in his postgame, which was sort of an excuse. He was pretty much saying, I'm doubled, so there's not much I can do. That was primarily an excuse he gave for the reason why he was loafing. I don't like that part. Okay, because there was multiple plays, specifically the one where, it was like 3rd and long, it was like 3rd and 16, and, he ran like this lazy comeback route, and Dak Prescott was just sitting here saying like, dude, run. Like, they showed it on camera. I can't quite remember. It was towards the end of the game. But that's the reason why I was upset in that front. But let's be honest, George Pickens has been running these type of routes all year. And Brian Schottenheimer, credit to him in this way, he's been able to schematically get George Pickens open. Like George Pickens in the time that he was out with CeeDee Lamb, like he was running crossers, he was running all these routes. George Pickens was a threat. You didn't know if he was going to go deep over the top. You didn't know if he was going to slant in the middle of the field, if he was going to run a crosser, deep. Like he was a weapon. And when your receiver goes down mid-game like CeeDee Lamb did, you don't have the opportunity as a coach to just be able to just switch your game plan and your plays up to try and scheme this guy open. Because you've already set the type of plays and the install for that game. And I think they're being a little bit harsh on George Pickens. And if I'm Dallas, I will use this against him because this is the thing when it comes to culture building, when it comes to what George Pickens, we can't let this one game, and many people across the Dallas Cowboys media have said this, we cannot allow this one game to take away how well George Pickens has played all year. Like George Pickens is probably going to be an all-pro player this year. But we can't have this type of game if we're George Pickens. We just cannot allow this to happen. We need the George Pickens that is going to go 100% if he's out there as the number 1 receiver or if he's beside CeeDee Lamb, because that gives us the best opportunity to win. And sometimes when it comes to wide receivers, they're going to be divas. Look at A.J. Brown. The guy led them to a Super Bowl win. And even after that, they're still dealing with the drama. It comes with the wide receiver. Jamar Chase, granted, you don't have questions with the effort when it comes to these guys, except for last night when, A.J. Brown was kind of, some plays kind of playing a little lazy. But you don't question effort with these guys. And Randy Moss had a good point about that on Sunday Countdown when I was watching. Like, there's one, we can question your ability to run routes, this, that, but we just cannot question effort. That's like the bottom line when it comes to playing sports, football, any sport on a professional level. We cannot, when we're getting ready to pay you money and invest in you as a player, we cannot question your ability to go out and play at your very best. Can't do it. And that's where they're at with George Pickens. And anyways, with me personally, with George Pickens, I'm not signing him long term. I'm putting that franchise tag on him because I want to see the success for one more season. So that's my thoughts on George Pickens. Just being a little too harsh. I get where people are coming from, but we cannot allow this one game to overshadow what George Pickens has done this season and question if we're going to pay George Pickens. I've been on the front of saying you need to franchise tag him because I want to see this for one more season before I invest in this player. But, I think Brian Schottenheimer is the right guy to establish a culture and deal with this type of attitude and personality in the locker room because it's worked for the most part all season. I think he enjoys playing with CeeDee Lamb. And that's just my thoughts and 2 cents on that. But let's switch over from NFL and just talk a little bit of college football. This is outside my spectrum of practice. I will admit that. And I plan on in post Christmas, I'm gonna have a lot of interviews going on. We're gonna have some guests on the show. These people are primary heavy college football guys. But I loved watching the playoff last year. I really, really enjoyed it. I think the 12-team format was a great idea. I pat the college football with NCAA on the back for establishing this for the fans and for us people who love football. But my thing when it comes to what they decided Sunday in selecting the teams, this was my one issue. And I've been harping about this for the last 2 days when I've had conversations with buddies. I even talked about it earlier today. I have an issue with Tulane and JMU getting into the playoff. This is an overarching problem that Notre Dame didn't get in. I can say the committee got it mostly right. When you compare Notre Dame and Miami, very similar. Strength of schedule, who they've beat, who they've played, everything was equal. What did you go base that off of? Head to head. Miami beat them in week 1 by 3 points, and that's what they went with. But we wouldn't have had this problem about Notre Dame getting in if it wasn't for having that fifth power, whatever, what's the term they used? Fifth something team or whatever they like to call it in JMU and Tulane. And this is the reason why I have a problem with putting Group 5, whatever term they were using, conference champions into the college football playoff. Because we've said this precedent, and this was what we wanted, and it's the way the format worked with the when they had just 4 teams. We're putting the best 4 teams into the playoff. Same thing when they announced the 12-team playoff. Even going into this season, they got rid of the conference champions getting the first 4 seeds because they set this precedent. We want the best 12 teams to be in this bracket from 1 to 12. So 1 through 5, I don't care if you were a conference champ. We're going to go off record, and that's who's going to get the best seeds. Okay. But we can't pick and choose when we want to use this idea. Because this is where I have the problem. What happened in the ACC this season? Duke won their conference. What does that mean? It means that they should get an automatic bid. because they won their conference. But guess what? That wasn't the case because you have a 10-2 team in Miami that had a better overall record than at the time, well, not even at the time, once they won the ACC tournament championship game, the Duke Blue Devils had 8 wins and 5 losses. A lot of this has to do with the ACC and the way they formulated Duke getting into the ACC championship game. I'm a Duke guy. I root for their basketball. And, football not so much. But I mean, when I saw Duke football made the ACC championship, I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I thought my analytical brain was like, what? How does a 5-loss team get into the ACC championship? I even looked at like Miami's 10-2. How are they not competing against Virginia? But this is where I have my issues because they interviewed the college football playoff commissioner in the selection show on Sunday. He openly stated that Duke winning the ACC did not matter. So them being a conference champion did not matter. So that's the reason why they implemented a 10-2 Miami into the mix. So if that's the case, and Duke is a Power 4 school, Power 4, why are we setting the precedent that they don't matter, but a Group 5 school in JMU and Tulane winning their conference does? That to me makes absolutely zero sense. Like zero. I've seen nobody bring this up. I've seen a couple people bring this up, but this is the part of being good journalism. I watched this guy say, it came out of his mouth. Y'all go back and watch it and fact check me all you want to. He stated that it did not matter that Duke won the ACC championship. Because of their record, they're not getting in. Mind you, Duke didn't even finish top 25 in their final college ranking by the committee. So you say that about Duke, a Power 4 school who is playing top tier opponents. How are you going to allow a JMU and Tulane to get in? If that's the case, if what you're talking about, that don't matter, Texas, Notre Dame, BYU, and Vanderbilt deserve that spot. Because that's what we ultimately want. We want to get the best 12 teams into the college football playoff. But outside of that little gripe I had, they got it right. I think Bama needed to be in because you cannot punish a team for making it to your conference championship game and you're just booting them out in a loss. Now, they did that with BYU. And it's another thing where the committee just continues to find themselves putting their foot in their own mouth. And it's the same thing that happened with that. You say you didn't want to punish Alabama for losing in their conference championship game, but in that same right, you did that to BYU. So that's the reason why people have talked about it. I wouldn't be against it. We might have to get rid of these conference championship games because they really do more harm than good. But we got to get to a world where the 12 best teams get into the college football playoff. And kudos to Nick Saban. He's talked about this. Like, Nick Saban brought this up multiple times. He even said that in the broadcast on Sunday. He was like, look, no offense to JMU and Tulane, but like, how can we really compare these two teams to a team like Texas, Notre Dame, BYU, and Vanderbilt, who did not get in? And if you haven't paid attention, Oregon plays JMU or Tulane. I can't remember. Either way, Oregon's 20-point favorites. I think vice versa. Whoever Tulane or whoever it was they play, they're like a 17-point underdog. Like, both of these teams are going to get boat raced. I don't understand. If you are the NCAA and the College Football Playoff Committee, you want to put the best 12 teams in there. And I think it's going to happen moving forward. It's something that we got to get, and they've talked about it. They want inclusivity. Bull crap. You want inclusivity. The fans want the best 12 teams in the playoff. Do you know how bad fans would love to see Texas, Notre Dame, or Vanderbilt in the college football playoff? Like, would love to see it. And that's an overarching problem, the thing with the Heisman. We'll talk about that later. I'm going to say that for another day because there's an interesting thing that 2 of the Heisman candidates this season is not even part of the college football playoff. That's an indictment on the NCAA there. But that's neither here nor there. But by the way, in the standard, they have the rule set. I think they got it right. Notre Dame, this is just a little kicker on Notre Dame. You put your own self in this situation. You're independent. Book some strong games. Your best win was USC, a team that could not guard a light pole. That was your best win. So, and I know I might make a lot of people mad about this. I don't feel sorry for Notre Dame. Really don't. Miami got the head-to-head win. Whew, still got like 4 more topics to get to, guys. I got to wrap this thing up real fast. We're only 3 down. I'm going to make these couple next topics quick and easy here because I am currently sick as a dog right now. Making this show. We're powering through it. The headliner for today's show, the Kansas City Chiefs. There is no doubt that the Chiefs needed to pretty much close to win out. They're in the same predicament as the Dallas Cowboys. You got to win out in order to possibly make the playoffs. And, you had everybody in the media like, you can't count out the Chiefs. Well, darn it, going forward, it might be time to count out the Chiefs. Okay? This is a bad football team. And do not get me wrong. I do not, and I repeat, I do not associate their failure this season with Patrick Mahomes. I don't. I think this has been more of an execution issue with the Chiefs. Because here was the stat with the Chiefs last season. The Chiefs were 11-0 last season in one-score games. What is the Kansas City Chiefs record this year in one-score games? 1-6. Why do I bring this up? Because we've always talked about Patrick Mahomes and the clutch gene last year and even his whole career so far. But Patrick Mahomes can't do that when you have Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce dropping passes. The one pass that Rashee Rice dropped on 4th down was huge. Travis Kelce, you drop a pass that led into an interception. That was huge. So this team, and I'm one that said it. I really thought, like, man, they're getting Rashee Rice. Like, let's be honest, Rashee Rice has really been underwhelming this year. Like, he's had bad drops so far in these, like, gotta-have-it games. He had them a couple weeks ago on Thanksgiving against Dallas. He had a big, huge, crucial drop on 2nd or 3rd down, 1 of the 2, that ended a Patrick Mahomes masterclass comeback-type drive. This has been the testament for the Chiefs all season, like drops. I think they're like top 3 in most drop passes this season. So their execution has been a main catalyst to why they haven't been successful this season. And since I don't think the Chiefs are going to win not going to the playoffs, this is going to be the next couple of years are going to decide essentially Patrick Mahomes' career. Jayden, what are you saying? I'm not sitting here saying that Patrick Mahomes is about to go next season without missing missing the playoffs. I do not think that. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be successful. But it's more along like how successful is Patrick Mahomes going to be without Travis Kelce? He's going to be out of the door. I mean, this season alone is just, you could just pull up the tape and pull up the clips. Like, there are just multiple clips where Travis Kelce has single-handedly been the reason why they've lost like 3 or 4 games. When you think about the Jacksonville game, this game against the Texans, and I think he had another one. I just cannot remember what game it was. But he's had 3 or 4 games where his drops has just cost the Chiefs games. Now this season he's made. Now don't get me wrong, Travis Kelce has had a pretty decent season statistically, really has. But when the thick is getting thin, and we needed that goddic drive by Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, the execution has not been there by Travis Kelce. And how successful is Mahomes going to be without Travis Kelce, and how will the front office be able to build a roster? Because it's getting old. When you watch them, like, they need players. Defensively, they cannot rush the passer without blitzing everybody. And Chris Jones hasn't played great this year, but on Sunday night, he played actually pretty well. But how is the front office going to be able to build a roster? Because you're going to, and this is the reason why I don't want to say the dynasty is dead. Because shockingly, we're kind of found our new age Tom Brady and the Patriots. Tom Brady, you had the window, they won 3 Super Bowls. Then you had the middle ground right there where, they weren't winning. And then they were able to hit on some draft picks, establish and build a new team led by the front office and GM, and they were able to run another dynasty. So are the Chiefs, led by Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, going to be able to double down on that type of formula and be able to replicate it in a certain type of way? I don't know this, because Patrick Mahomes is in a different situation than what Brady was with Belichick. Brady and Belichick were young. Brady was young. Belichick was pretty young in his coaching career. So you had like a 20-year run like they had. That's not necessarily the same equation with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like, Andy Reid's kind of old. Andy Reid, I don't want to say this for certain, but I want to say, this may not be right, but from the top of my head, I do remember seeing this. I mean, Andy Reid's kind of muled getting out of coaching. And Patrick Mahomes has got plenty of years left in his prime. Like, Patrick Mahomes has got 10 more years in his NFL career. There's a situation where Andy Reid is not going to be present for the rest of his career. But, Brady was able to leave Bill Belichick and be successful. So I believe Patrick Mahomes has the capability to leave Andy Reid and be successful. But that's just my thing when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs' future. Like, we know the way you're about to lose and not make the playoffs. You're not going to win the division for the first time since 2015. So it's a down year. So how are we going to be able to build this roster back up for the future? Because when you look in your own division, you got the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. They're not going anywhere. They're just going to continue to get better. Also, Sean Payton and Bo Nix, like, that defense and that culture, it is set. So how are you going to be able to combat everything that's going on in your own division and even in the AFC? When you look around, it's a shocking year for the AFC. Like, there's a potential Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and even Patrick Mahomes are not going to be in the playoffs. That's potentially not a good sign for the Chiefs for the future. All these younger teams are making their way up, like the Patriots and everyone else. So how, and even the Jaguars, like, how are we going to be able to hang on to the dynasty? That's something that really is going to be tested in the next couple of years of Mahomes' career. And I don't blame the Chiefs' lack of success this season on Patrick Mahomes. I just think the people around him has let them down. So that was my takeaway when it comes to the Chiefs. Now move on to the Texans. Another young team I was talking about that can be on the rise. CJ Stroud was making some plays on Sunday. Like he was taking a beating. Like that defensive line for the Chiefs, led by Chris Jones, specifically in that second half, was like, the Chiefs felt like in the second half, like they came out swinging. Got a big stop. Patrick Mahomes felt like they were going to go down and score. I think they did go down and score, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they scored 10 points in the third quarter. So they just kept on. They came out swinging out of the gates. And, ultimately, it just was all for nothing. They had that one little boost of energy in the third quarter, and it just could not sum out to a whole half. A lot of that has to do with age. And that happened defensively for the I take that back. Defensively, the Chiefs played phenomenal in the second half. Like, if it wasn't for the offense giving the Texans short fields, they probably wouldn't have scored. But kudos to CJ Stroud. Back to what we were talking about. Statistically, he didn't play well. He completed less than 50% of his passes. But when he needed to make a play, he made plays. So I got to give credit to where credit is due when it comes to CJ Stroud. I still don't love them offensively at all. I mean, this Woody Marks kid, he can run the ball pretty good. He only averaged 2.6 yards a carry. But Nick Chubb, he went out with an injury. Receiving core has not felt right the last couple of years. I've discussed this many times when they let go of Bobby Slowick. Don't understand why they did that. But this offense, it just doesn't seem right. And the head coach literally had to give up his defensive play calling responsibilities after their 3 straight losses and was like, hey, let me go pay attention to the offense. So I still don't love their offense. And that's ultimately the reason why I don't think they're going to make any noise in the playoffs. But that defense, though, don't even get me started with that defense. Back-to-back weeks, you defeat Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And you made them look bad. Patrick Mahomes, statistically, 14 for 33, 160 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions. You forced Patrick Mahomes to have a passer rating and a quarterback rating of 19. That, my friends, that's a legit defense. Back-to-back weeks, you embarrass the best quarterbacks in the league. That's a defense led by Will. Like, they have players everywhere. Like, and I watched them Sunday in envy. I was like, my Lord, would I love to see these players with a star on their helmet playing like this all around. Petrie locking up Travis Kelce. I mean, he had Travis Kelce just in his feelings on Sunday night, locking him up. Number 4 got an interception. Derek Stingley made a big play near the end of the game. Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, they got to Patrick Mahomes, made him uncomfortable. Like, that team there, that defense is good. And in the league, if you got a good defense, you got a shot. But this team is just, they just don't have it offensively. They're reminding me of a team right now, honestly, Philly. They kind of feel like Philly in a way. I don't think they're as bad offensively as Philly, but I just don't love their offense. So I don't think the Texans is going to make any noise, and the Chiefs are going to be missing the playoffs for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. Crazy times we're living in. Let's go ahead and move on to our very next game that I want to talk about. God, is it me, y'all, or this feels like a long podcast? Might be just because I'm feeling bad. But man, I think we got roughly 2 more topics to get to, or 3. I actually take it back. I got 3. 2 games, and we're going to talk about the Colts. All right, let's get to these last 2 games. Look, and this is part of me. A lot of these games I wouldn't have to talk about if I just done the show on yesterday, but I felt bad yesterday as well. So I'm cramming 2 days worth of stuff into one show. We got to get to it. Got a job to do. All right, let's talk about my favorite game of the weekend. And I was very much looking forward to this game. Bears-Packers. Covered both of these teams. They're like, honestly, probably my favorite 2 teams in the league when it comes to just watching them and having to analyze them for a story and a show. My team, who I am currently have a love affair over these last couple of weeks, in the Chicago Bears, went up against the Packers. Great game. Great game. At first, it felt like it was going to be a bit of a dud because, the Bears were disappointing me a little bit because I wanted them to win. Obviously, I want the Cowboys draft pick to get a little bit better, granted, since they get it from the Packers. So I want them to lose. And the score was 3-14, going into half, and I was sitting there like, you're playing on the road in Lambeau, super cold weather. Like, nothing was going right for them. All odds were stacked against them. And coming out of halftime, I was like, man, this puppy feels like it is over. Jordan Love out there making plays. Jordan Love playing good. After that first drive where he threw a pick, I even posted it and tweeted out on X, and I was like, Jordan Love, first drive of the game, they're methodically walking the ball down the field, and as soon as he gets sacked, he just throws a pick right to the hands of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. But kudos to Jordan Love. He went out there and he balled. But my main takeaway was, honestly, the Bears showed that they were no joke. Like a team, like I said, you're on the road, super cold, Lambeau Field, primetime America. Everybody's watching. America's Game of the Week. Tom Brady's on the call. And they answered the call. I cannot believe I said call back-to-back sentences, but they answered the bell. They really did. They come out the first half pretty lackluster. You only got 3 points. Caleb Williams not playing good. Couldn't run the football. Defensively, you gave up a couple touchdowns. Even Brisker, the 1 touchdown he gave up, the long pass on number 16, he was like this close from picking it off. So you were making some close plays. and you weren't able to fully, capitalize on a turnover. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, first drive for the Packers, gets an interception, gets it to the Packers side of the field, and offensively the Bears weren't able to do anything with it. But the second half, they came out and balled. Cold, tough environment, and took over the second half. Like, Caleb Williams was able to make some big plays. And it was good that I was able to dissect this game. The thing around Caleb Williams this season, been super inaccurate. Saw it in the first half. But in the second half, Caleb Williams was able to make some big throws and some big plays. That throw that he made, sidearm to Zacchaeus on the end zone, like, that's a play. And there was another play where drifted out to his right and threw a touch pass. I think it was to Cole Kmet or whatever. It was a broken play. Like, just Caleb Williams showed why it's just easy to be fascinated over the guy. And this is the problem that we have with Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is a winner. And Caleb Williams under Ben Johnson could probably be a winner because that's been the Bears' mantra so far this season. They won 9 out of their last 10 games. But if Caleb Williams can combine his talent with winning, that could be just a formula of just that we all need. Because Caleb Williams was just making some plays. Even that last throw that he made at the end of the game, that throw is going to come with time. That's a throw. He needed to have it on the end zone, near the out-of-bounds line. You never throw a ball short in the end zone because it's going to get picked off. And in that same play, he had DJ Moore in the flat right there. And a lot of people was against the play call. I wasn't totally against it. And although you ran the ball very well in the second half, like, they were mauling that defense of the Packers in the second half. They showed multiple clips of the Packers just out there huffing and puffing, kind of like me right now dealing with this sickness. Can't barely breathe. Like, Micah Parsons looked like he was about to die in the second half. Like, they were just, that offensive line was just, and after the first half, they were getting dominated. Like that, and we'll talk about the Packers. Like, the Packers defense was phenomenal, but in the second half, they were able to respond, bounce back, really ran the ball pretty well. DeAndre Swift, 4.8 yards a carry, and Banun guy, 4.1 yards a carry. He just could not come away with the W. And Ben Johnson made some adjustments in the second half, passing on first down, mixing in more efficient play action plays to set up Caleb Williams for success. And they wear the Packers down. Well, ultimately, the Packers came up with a big play to win the game. And the Packers won because they are the better team. Like, if Jordan Love plays like this, they can win a Super Bowl. Jordan Love was actually really good. Really good on Sunday. 17 for 25, 3 touchdowns, the one bad interception that I discussed earlier in the topic. And there were just a couple throws that Jordan Love was making. It was like, that's Aaron Rodgers-esque. Really was. Like Jayden Reed, it was his first game back, and really, he seemed like the missing ingredient for this past game and for Jordan Love. You can tell between Watson, Reed, and even Tucker Kraft at the time, he loves those 3 guys. Really does. And having Jayden Reed back could be the missing ingredient that this offense really needed. For some reason, Matthew Golden, this draft pick, super underutilized this season. I really, at this point, the way they've been playing on offense, not using Matthew Golden, I'd have probably let the Packers possibly get an offensive lineman or even another defensive piece with that draft pick. Maybe even a running back. Because the way they've been using Matthew Golden, just Christian Watson off of an ACL. We're talking about a guy, Matthew Golden, coming off of a fantastic season in Texas. He's a speed guy. Basically, Christian Watson, but a shorter version. Christian Watson coming off an ACL has just been out there balling. I think there was a stat in the last 4 games, he has 5 touchdowns. 5. And when he's out there just making plays on Sunday, like, he's a good wide receiver. Like, he's legit. And it really shows why Jordan Love loves the guy so much. He's just fresh off of ACL, just out there balling, and Matthew Golden's just sitting there, can't even get on the field. Granted, I can attest to this because I drafted Matthew Golden in both of my fantasy teams, and he's just not worked out. It was kind of like my secret weapon, The thing is, the last couple of years, all these rookie wide receivers, they pretty much flourish right when they come into the league, and that was kind of like Matthew Golden was my secret weapon because I knew Christian Watson was going to be out for majority of the year, and then Jayden Reed got hurt week 2, so from week 3 all the way to roughly week 9, week 8. There was a 6-week span where it's like, okay, let's get this Matthew Golden project going. But that has not been the case. Matthew Golden just cannot even get on the field. But if they continue to play like this, I don't blame them. But something that could grow worrisome, and I've discussed it already. The Packers defense, kind of getting worried about them, physicality wise, because they got worn down. And I kind of might be overestimating how physical and, my whole take about them getting worn down in potentially a big playoff game. Because guess what? I mean, they were playing in frigid cold temperatures. They said it was 10 degrees, but it felt like 20 at one point. Sorry, it was 20. Let me flip that. It was 20 degrees, but it felt like 10. Like, it was freezing cold. And when you're in the cold and you get hit on a football field, it just hurts. You're going to be more tired because when you're in the cold, you're going to have to breathe even harder. So, yeah, I might be overstating that just a bit. But it's just an idea to take away from this game. I worry about the physicality of the Packers because they are a team who they want to get after the quarterback, and they want to be the ones who bully you. That happened in the first half for the Packers defense. Now, in the second half, they were kind of getting pushed around, like they honestly were. It felt like DeAndre Swift and Monungai, each time they touched the ball, they were going to get 5 yards. So they were getting worn down. But they ultimately came up with a big play to win the game defensively. And they got under Caleb Williams. Like Caleb Williams, where it was under duress for the first time that I've watched him all year. Maybe since the beginning of the season. Like Caleb Williams was not able to do what he wanted to do with the football. And that is a recipe for success when it comes to the Packers ultimately winning the Super Bowl. Like, you drafted, you traded for Micah Parsons for this reason. And it's paying off. Both these teams, I think, can make noise in the playoffs. I really do. More so the Packers because they feel like they're Super Bowl or bust because you traded for Micah Parsons. You gave up 2 future first-round picks. And Kenny Clark, like, it's kind of win now. You have the team. You have the roster. And it showed on Sunday. They had the better roster from top to bottom. But Chicago's future is super bright with Ben and Caleb, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing them for the rest of the season. As far as playoff outlook, I have the Packers in the Super Bowl bubble if they can continue this offensive performance that they are doing. But for Chicago, I think if they win one playoff game this season, like, it's a win. Like, we weren't expecting much out of the Bears this season. Like, I expected a fringe, somewhat maybe playoff team. And honestly, if you told me, Jayden, the way the playoffs is going, the Dallas Cowboys could go 10, 6, and 7 and not even make the playoffs, and you're like, the Cowboys can't make the playoffs, but the Bears can? Not happening. So the Bears being this good this season, like, just phenomenal. If they win one playoff game, huge win for that franchise. And another team who is going to make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to do much, the Buffalo Bills. Bills-Bengals, this was a snowy one. A lot going on. And I've said this multiple times when it refers to the Bills. I don't love this team. I don't. It's pretty much Josh Allen in the bag of chips, to put it lightly. I was trying to find a little analogy and pun to use, but it just couldn't register in my brain. So we'll go with that. But before we get to the Bills, let's just talk about the Bengals for a little bit. I watched this game and I'm like, I just love Joe Burrow. I love this guy. He's tough as nails. Like, he wants to play football. This is a guy who loves football. He's from Ohio, and he was out there playing in a blizzard Sunday afternoon, and the guy wasn't fazed. He was like, love this weather. Just eating it up. Enjoying every single minute of it. That's my type of quarterback. That's my type of football player. He was out there in that snow, flinging the football. Flinging it. Joe Burrow was 25 for 36, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks, and we'll get to those 2 interceptions in a minute. But he was just doing whatever he wanted to do in that weather to that Bills defense. Part of the reason why I don't think they're going to do anything in the playoffs, but we'll get to that later. I honestly would take Joe Burrow out of every other quarterback, except for maybe Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. But honestly, out of those 2 guys, if I were to start a franchise tomorrow or even right now, and I had to draft what quarterback I wanted, Joe Burrow is going to be at the top of that discussion. He is your premier old school pocket passer. And even if he needs to make plays with his legs, he can do so. Like, Joe Burrow is just awesome. and getting to those interceptions. That interception had to be that he threw the first one. That interception he threw had to be the worst play of his career. I've watched Joe Burrow for the last 5-6 years. I've never seen a throw that worse than what Joe Burrow made. I don't know if he was, he wanted to throw the screen, he saw something, but I don't know what he was trying to do because the way he was throwing it was like, okay, Joe Burrow, are you trying to throw it over the top? Usually when you throw a screen, it's kind of like, you're throwing a dart to the outside to try and give Jamar Chase a chance to make a play with his legs. But the way that play there was just bad all around. I don't even know what they were trying to do. I think Joe Burrow checked out of a play and he saw something and was trying to go to Jamar Chase, but Benford, kudos to him, he read it, and Joe Burrow just threw the worst, and I mean the absolute worst, interception he's threw his whole career. Easily. And the next one that he threw was just super unfortunate. You're trying to throw a check down there again to Jamar Chase. Defensive lineman tips the ball up in the air and ends up right in his hands. And that's your second interception. And those two turnovers literally shifted the scales of this game. A 14-point swing. Your first one, worst interception of your career. Pick six. Nobody even came close to touching him. And the second interception spotted the Bills 7 points. 14-point swing, and that's why you lost the game. Because, and I think those two interceptions were an aberration. Like, Joe Burrow played a phenomenal game. He had one stinker that literally cost him the whole game. That second interception is just a normal, just terrible interception. And this is where we move on to the Bills a little bit. Because despite their win, it felt like they never controlled this game. Never. Like, and John Middlecoff, I was listening to him Sunday night. He was kind of like, you know what? I never felt like the Bengals were going to win this game. I was the complete opposite. I'm like, dude, the Bengals has got this game. Like, Joe Burrow was just going up and down the field. And if it wasn't for those phantom interceptions that saved them, they wouldn't have won this game. Because the defense couldn't get a stop, and Josh Allen had to put on his Superman cape per usual. And that's another reason why I don't think this team is a Super Bowl contender. Now, when you look across the AFC, a lot of the best team in the AFC right now is having offensive problems. So that kind of favors the Bills. And I'm talking and referring to the Denver Broncos. Even when you look at other teams, we could talk about the Jaguars. You never know what you're getting out of Trevor Lawrence, even though a lot of people are saying he had his best game on Sunday. He has had his whole career. But another team we can talk about as well. We could talk about the Texans, who we just talked about earlier, like teams that have offensive problems. So that could help out their defense when it comes to the playoffs. But ultimately, offensively for the Bills, when you're going up against these great defenses, like the best defense in the NFL probably in the Broncos, which I beg to differ because I like Seattle's defense better just a bit, and maybe even the Texans. I'm starting to like them a little bit more. But either way, you got to go up against the Texans, who absolutely embarrassed you on Thursday Night Football, and even the Broncos. Like, this offense is just bad. And I did a lot of research for this specific take I'm about to make because I've discussed it many times. We look at the box score right now. Josh Allen was 22 for 28, 251 yards, 3 touchdowns. Phenomenal game. Like, Josh Allen was just phenomenal. Josh Allen again had to put on his Superman cape. Like, he was making a lot of plays. Like that throw he made to Shakir. Like, only a certain amount of quarterbacks in the NFL history can make that throw. In the freezing cold, in the snow, throw it on a dime between 3 defenders. Josh Allen, that dude. Like, Josh Allen made some plays yesterday. Like, clearly, he's reached the peak of his superpowers. I personally never really thought Josh Allen could reach this level of play. Josh Allen coming from Wyoming. He come from Wyoming, like a non-Power 4 school. Small school, he comes into the NFL, rookie year, not really good. Next year after that, pretty good, 10-6 record, and he's just skyrocketed. And we've had this conversation about Josh Allen from 2020 all the way to 23. Like, Josh Allen has been this roller coaster. Like, he's super phenomenal one game for a couple games, and then he'll have that one game where it just all comes crashing down. Like a Dak Prescott type of quarterback, where Dak he's great in the regular season, but in the playoffs, he just forgets how to play football. But I never really thought we would come to the conversation with Josh Allen where it's like, Josh Allen's the best quarterback in the NFL, and it's not even close. Like, he won the MVP last year, and even this season, out of a couple stinker games that he's had, And if it wasn't for his poor roster, Josh Allen is just phenomenal this season. He's just out there making plays. And he's the single reason why the Bills are set up and they're 9-4. And their one loss at home has been to their rival in the Patriots. But outside, and this is the reason why I'm talking about this, and outside the rookie year, outside of Josh Allen's rookie year, or maybe the 2019 team, this might be the worst roster that Josh Allen has played with, like across the board, offensively, and maybe even somewhat defensively. Yeah, let's count defense. I went back and did my research. Outside of Josh Allen's rookie year in 2018 and the 2019 team, and they went 10-6, like this is arguably the worst roster across the board Josh Allen has had. We've had many questions about their roster building because this team's not good. They made, and we've specifically talked about offensively, wide receiver position. They have no wide receivers. They made it a call to get Jalen Waddle from the Dolphins. They were desperate to get a wide receiver from their own division. Obviously, that weren't going to happen. But you look at the box score. Your two tight ends are your leading receivers. Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Shakir, 2 catches for 16 yards. Gabe Davis, 2 catches for 21 yards. Keon Coleman, 2 catches for 16 yards. Tyrell Shavers, 1 catch for 16 yards. For some reason, everybody wanted to get 16-yard plays. But you get the picture. You get where I'm coming from here. Like, this roster is not good. It's not Super Bowl caliber. Like, I don't see this offense, and I do not expect Josh Allen to go up against a Texans or a Broncos type defense, even maybe the Chargers, and just be able to go absolutely Super Saiyan like he did against the Bengals and win a game, because that at the end of the day, that's the Bengals defense. And offensively, they made a big error. James Cook fumbled the ball on the 2-yard line. So that's the reason why I felt like at no point the Bills really controlled this game. It felt like the Bengals had it, but they got 2 lucky interceptions. Well, one was lucky with the whole tip pass. You know, the other one was making a good play. I mean, he undercut the route, but still, you got phantom interceptions that literally was a 14-point swing and allowed you to get the dub. Because defensively, you gave up 34 points. 34. Possibly could have been more. I think Cincinnati was about to get 40 if it weren't for those interceptions. So and I don't love them defensively. I think any offense is going to be able to go up and down the field on these guys. T. Higgins, 6 catches for 92 yards. Gesicki had 86 yards. Jamar Chase, 5 catches for 44. Like, T. Higgins did whatever he wanted to do on their number one guy. The rookie Hairston was the one guarding T. Higgins on multiple of the routes. I just don't love this team. I don't love this roster. I don't think they're good, which is kind of disappointing given how mediocre the AFC has been this year. Like, they're the worst conference, and you think this might be the best chance. And honestly, this is another conversation. The Bills going to the playoffs is going to be the most experienced team. They are. If you look at them, who else is more experienced? When you look at the AFC playoff picture, just pull it up. Currently, now to make the playoffs, the Broncos have no experience with their roster. Nor does the Patriots. The Jaguars don't. Pittsburgh, to a certain degree, don't. The Chargers, somewhat. And Houston, somewhat. The Buffalo Bills are probably going to be the most seasoned team in the playoffs. Possibly. If Lamar Jackson and company can get in comparison to the Steelers, but I have no faith in that team making the playoffs. Like, they're bad. That's another discussion for another day. But what's in the Bills' favor is if they go into the playoffs, like, they're going to have the most experience. But honestly, if they were to, unless they win their division, they're going to have to go on the road. All playoffs. If they go on the road against a team like the Patriots, the Broncos, or maybe even the Texans, I don't think they'll go on the road against the Texans because the Texans, they'd have to win their division. But hypothetically, if the Texans were to win their division and had to go back to NRG Stadium, they would be underdogs in that game. For sure. So I don't love the Bills. And that's the topic of the day. And real short for the Bengals, I would have loved to see Joe Burrow this year because I think they could have possibly made the playoffs coming out of that division. I really do. I think they easily, so far since Joe Burrow came back, had the best offense in the in that division. Not even close. That one game by Joe Burrow, it was phenomenal how Joe Burrow played. It's kind of sucks how they didn't come away with a victory that game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last topic. I even got to get out of here. I got to be somewhere in the next 45 minutes, roughly. So we're going to get this one. Little quick, short story. And I'm going to give my 2 cents on it. Okay. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and end today's show. I kind of need to get off of here and do some stuff before I got to get ready to go. I'm going to do a show tomorrow, and I'm going to kind of help this lean into the topics going on into tomorrow's show. So I'm going to save this topic for tomorrow. I was going to talk about the Colts and their injuries and things of that nature. I'm already 6 topics in deep, and I'm super fatigued right now. And who knows if I'm going to have the manpower to even make a show tomorrow. So I'm going to save that topic for another day. We were going to talk about the Colts and their injuries and some news that came up today about Phillip Rivers just signing with the Colts. So I already had this show written up on Monday. So I didn't know this Colts thing, this Phillip Rivers thing was even part of the news before I even wrote my script up. So that happened. But we'll get to that on a later date. I need to hurry up and go ahead and get out of here. I got a ceremony to go to, and I'm half dead right now. And I'm actually pretty tired right now talking on this microphone. I've been talking for the last hour and 15 minutes, and I'm really tired. Thank you all for joining me today. Excuse my my voice. Do not feel good currently at the moment. Felt worse. This is the worst I've felt so far in the last 5 days. I've been gone. I feel I could have done a show Friday, Saturday, Sunday, even yesterday, sounding 10 times better. For some reason, it's hit me like a rock today. So forgive me. It's been a while. I enjoyed getting on this pod talking with you guys. For some reason, I guess maybe because it's sick, this has been felt like the longest podcast I've did. But I enjoyed it. I'm glad I was finally been able to get to some games because there's games spanning from last Thursday, that I have not been able to talk about. And there's even some reposts that I've not even done for last show. So there's a lot I got to catch up on. And I'm currently trying to graduate college at the same time in the next coming days. So I'm glad to get back in the swing of things. Supposed to be having a show tomorrow. Based on how I feel, I don't quite know how that will go into fruition yet. So be on the lookout for that. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share the podcast to a friend or family member. Thank you all for joining me today. I love you so much. Peace, love, and positivity, and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you guys soon.